Good afternoon and welcome to today's program, Cyberstalking, How Your Digital Footprint Can Affect You. The third event hold on. Sorry, I got a little pop-up notice. Welcome to the third event in our month-long Cybersecurity Awareness Month series. I'm Nicholas Cunningham, the Program Manager of Lehigh. We have a great presentation coming to you today, led by Andrew Prynn from Lehigh Carbon Community College and Heather Supplee from DeSales University. This presentation is geared toward understanding the sides of cyberstalking and how your digital footprint plays a large role in that. They will define what cyberstalking is and how it is used against someone, and provide methods to help better secure your digital data and protect you from not just cyberstalking, but other cyber-enabled crimes as well. Before we begin, please be aware that this session is being recorded and will be posted to our website afterwards. Additionally, please put your questions in the chat as I will be collecting them during the presentation, and we will hold a Q&A at the end. I hope you all enjoy today's presentation, and now I'm going to turn everything over to Andrew and Heather.
Good afternoon. My name's Heather. Unfortunately, my camera's not working right now. Otherwise, you'd be able to see me. But I'm the IT Systems Programmer and Security Analyst at DeSales, and with me is Andrew Prynn, the Junior Network and Security Administrator at Lehigh Community College. Today, we want to discuss not just our digital footprints, but how our digital footprint may be used against us in cases such as cyberstalking. Cyberstalking has become an increasingly common crime that many people experience each year, sometimes without even knowing it until things start escalating. With how prevalent technology is in our day-to-day lives, it's sometimes hard to recognize the signs of cyberstalking before it becomes a much larger problem. What we want to do today is explain what those signs are, what it can look like for case by case, and how you can limit your digital footprint to prevent coming into any of these potential dangers, all without having to don our tinfoil hats. So let's begin by defining what is cyberstalking. So cyberstalking is when someone repeatedly uses technology like emails, social media, or messaging apps to harass, threaten, or scare another person. It's a serious issue that affects millions of people every year. In fact, by 2024, an estimated 7.5 million people were affected by cyberstalking annually. That's a big jump from the report done in 2019 by the Bureau of Justice Statistics, when about 3.4 million people ages 16 and older were reported as victims. What's even more alarming is that 80% of stalking victims experience some form of cyberstalking, whereas 67% face traditional in-person stalking, though many dealt with both. Cyberstalking usually falls within four main categories. One being surveillance, which is a person constantly watching someone's online activity. Two, life invasion, which is a person intruding into someone's personal life, like sending unwanted messages or showing up unexpectedly. Intimidation, the act of using threats to scare or control someone. And interference, which is trying to sabotage someone's reputation, relationships, or work. These categories often overlap, and each case can look a little bit different from each other. Cyberstalking is part of a larger issue called technology-facilitated abuse, or shorthanded as TFA. This includes things like cyberbullying, sextortion, which is threatening to share private images, and non-consensual sexting. A recent study by Dr. Wendy Walsh from the University of New Hampshire found that young people are especially vulnerable. Juveniles were more likely to receive violent threats and often respond to those threats by avoiding others altogether, retreating from their families and peers. Another important finding is that about 67% of victims knew their stalkers in some way, whether as a friend, acquaintance, or former partner. The last item listed here is actually the US code that defines what stalking is and its punishable offenses. Cyberstalking can take many forms, and it often depends on how much personal information someone shares online. The digital footprints we leave, like posts, messages, and location data, can make it easier for stalkers to find and contact us. Um, we'll take some look at some common ways cyberstalking can take shape. First off, being email. Stalkers may use or may send unwanted or threatening messages through email. In some cases, they might even gain access to a victim's email account and read their private messages. Instant messaging and texting are common communication methods used, and they're used more frequently due to the fact that they're just quick and easy to utilize. Victims may receive a high volume of disturbing or harassing messages through these means. Cyberstalking can take place through blogs. Personal blogs can reveal a lot: a person's emotional state, daily routines, favorite places, and relationships. All of these provide an insight or insider knowledge to the potential victim's livelihood. Stalkers may also use this information to manipulate or intimidate the victim, or even threaten people close to them. Doxing. Doxing can escalate the severity of cyberstalking to physical danger by revealing the victim's personal identifying information. When this is done on a public scale, it opens the victim to a larger audience for more harassment from others instead of just the original harasser. Doxing also encourages real-world threats, fraud, identity theft, and damages to a person's career and reputation. It also inflicts psychological and emotional stress on the victim and even the victim's family, which could lead to altering their way of living. We see a lot of this happening more frequently as, for example, someone with a large online presence gives a negative review on something or someone. It's not uncommon for those audiences to reach out to that company or the person, leaving their own negative reviews without ever having interacted with them or their product before. Sometimes we see this escalate to the larger audiences taking it on themselves to find the person's personal address or even their families and then harassing them there. This then goes into social media with platforms like Facebook or X, or formerly known as Twitter, where people are often sharing similar personal details as such on blogs. These platforms and the information a person might share can grant someone the opportunity to map out a person's life, who they interact with, where they work or live, and so much more. Stalkers can monitor posts, photos, and interactions to track someone's life. Just for a simple example, say you post a photo of you and a friend at a specific location, captioning it with something like, enjoying our weekly get together. This provides someone with the knowledge that A, you and this friend meet up frequently, providing a potential timeline of activity. B, shows you're close with that person, and that person can also be used against you. And C, any landmarks notable in that photo can pinpoint a location. This photo could also be reverse searched to further identify any other notable items to help determine your location. The one good thing to note is that with most social media platforms like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and even Discord, they will strip some of the metadata from the uploaded photos. So information such as like your longitude and latitude, or rather your GPS coordinates, won't be found. You have your phone calls and voicemails. These are often repeated, unwanted calls, and voicemails may contain graphic or threatening content. And then your GPSs and cameras. Devices can reveal a person's location in real time. If you're sharing your location with someone, if you're including in your social media posts, the shared from location feature, and so on, this can lead to physical stalking or threats to the victim and their loved ones. Something to look out for with these are like your AirTags. You hear a lot of stories about people finding AirTags, in their luggage, on their cars, etc. According to the report from the Bureau of Justice Statistics, 67% of victims feared being physically harmed or killed. 65% received unwanted calls or texts. 31% were monitored on social media. 29% had personal information posted or threatened to be posted. 22% were spied on using technology, and 14% were tracked using electronic devices. So cyberstalking isn't just annoying or uncomfortable. It can have real and lasting effects on a person's life. It's important to understand why this behavior is dangerous and why it's treated as a serious crime. Even with it being such a common crime, there is still some stigma around the concept of impact and consequences. People will ask, like, oh, why don't you just turn off the computer, or say, just don't look at your phone, without fully understanding the impacts these crimes have on a person and their livelihood, and that it reaches far beyond a screen. The emotional and psychological impact, victims often feel unsafe and begin to withdraw from the communities. They may become distrustful of others, even those close to them. This then leads to high stress levels and a decline in overall quality of life. There's the threat of escalation to physical danger. Cyberstalking can move beyond the screen. In some cases, it may lead to real-world threats, including physical harm, human trafficking, and threats to family, friends, and coworkers. With the loss of privacy, victims may feel like they're constantly being watched. They often don't know who is watching, what's being seen, or what might happen next. All of this leading again to the emotional and psychological impacts, and then the stress of it all affecting their quality of life. There's the risk of identity theft. If a stalker gains access to personal information, they might pretend to be the victim. This can lead to financial loss and damage to the victim's reputation. As stated earlier, cyberstalking can appear in many forms, and each case will look different from the last, varying person to person. And then here are just 3 examples of like what cyberstalking can look like in any sort of case. In October of 2023, a 66-year-old former police chief, William Bruce Parker, admitted to sending a series of threatening emails, texts, and voice messages from spoofed accounts to various female victims. These messages demanded victims send back pornographic material of themselves, or else Parker would inflict harm to them and their families, both physical and sexual harm, if his demands were not met. By including in his messages pieces of information, such as the communities the victims were involved in, Parker was able to incite more fear with these threats. Due to his background involvement in law enforcement before retiring, the victims had gone to him for advice on how to handle the situation, where he recommended they follow the demands from the threatening messages, falsely assuring them that the police investigating would follow the message trails. After receiving the material, Parker would then make further demands for more, or else he would leak the photos and videos he had received. These then escalated to demands of engaging in sexual acts with him, recording it, and then sending the recordings to his account. Another example would be of July of this year, 37-year-old James Florence was sentenced to 9 years in prison and 10 years supervised release due to his 16-year cyberstalking stint. He had created 62 accounts across multitudes of online platforms, as well as hacked and compromised personal accounts to surveil his victims, to impersonate women he knew. These were women who considered him a friend, a loved one, and someone they could rely on. Florence would steal photos from the women's online accounts. He would then digitally alter them with AI or Photoshop to create fake explicit images of the victims. Those were then posted publicly with their names, home addresses, and other identifying details for anyone to see. He would then encourage others to go online and torment them. His actions were described as, this was not internet trolling, it was psychological torture, sustained, targeted, and deeply personal by the U.S. Attorney Leah Foley. And then in Vero Beach, Florida, 29-year-old Mariah Keller, she had made alleged claims that a Vero Beach police officer was stalking her in an attempt to ruin his reputation. She had been posting photos of the officer with his family in Facebook groups and had visited the police station on numerous occasions to try and file complaints against the officer. Her claims were investigated and found false. She was issued a warning at first to cease her misinformation claims, but she did not and was arrested and charged for counts of cyberstalking, giving false reports to law enforcement, and resisting arrest without violence. This is just to show that false claims and accusations of harassment, both online and not, are taken seriously by law enforcement. There are a lot of claims that anyone can be accused of cyberstalking, and while we can't say that it won't ever happen, we can say that cyberstalking is a crime and will have accusations investigated to have consequences doled out to the harasser, whether that be the person committing the act of cyberstalking or the person making the false claims of being a victim to cyberstalking.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Andrew. I'm going to kind of go into understanding your digital footprint. So picture metadata, that's one of the big ones. It is cleaned when you put it on social media. However, if you're sharing this picture via chat or messenger or something along those lines, that metadata may still be there. This information is embedded into the photo, which is going to include the date and time that the picture was taken. Oftentimes, it's going to include a location, GPS coordinates. So that's something that you want to keep in mind when you're sharing your pictures with anybody. That's stuff that if it's a personal photo at your house, you may want to look at who you share that information with. Um, so social media profiles are another example of digital footprint. This could be any social platform, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky, Reddit, LinkedIn even. Um, that's of all a place that people can get information about you on. Once they have your first name and then your last name, they could start Googling you. A lot of the times you're going to show up, if you Google your name, there's a good chance that you're going to show up on a data broker's website. Um, these are big. So they gather all of the data that they can find. They're kind of like a data aggregate for people. So they will have your name, your address, previous addresses, people that may be related to you, information like that. That's all online and shared with other companies, other people, oftentimes for free. Um, and they also sell this data to third parties for marketing and purposes like that. So whatever information you put out there online, there is a chance that it goes to a data broker, which then gets shared with a third party. And that also ties into advertising trackers. So these are trackers that follow you throughout the internet. There are times, I'm sure, where you'll be on the internet looking at one thing, and then you'll see ads for that one item nonstop. Um, that's because of these advertising trackers. Now, you can prevent these. There are settings in your browsers to prevent these. Um, but oftentimes people ignore that. People don't really think that it's that big of a deal, but they are gathering data about you when you are browsing the internet, what you stopped on. So you don't even have to click on whatever you're looking at. It looks at everything, and it adds this to part of those trackers. Um, CISA does provide guidance for that. Um, I don't think we have that link in here, but there are things out there to kind of get your information off of data broker websites, um, and we'll kind of go into that in a little bit here as well. So that's kind of, well, next step. So how do you secure your digital footprint? So be cautious of what you're putting out there. You don't want to, put out your social security number on some random website. You don't want to post on your Facebook, hey, I was born this year and my mother's maiden name is this. So be careful with stuff like that. Be careful of any pictures you share. If you're tagging yourself in locations, be careful with that as well. People can use that to kind of build a map of, oh, you like to go this place, and this place. Now I can find out where you're going to be based off of that.
Another item I would like to interject there would be careful of what you're putting out there. Like I know I see a lot of people that share information on Facebook. There would be those posts that are like, oh, hey, what's your first name, or like your street address, and your last name would be your rapper name, and people would respond like, oh yeah, my rapper name would be this. um Stuff like that is how a lot of people will try and gather your information, because a lot of those questions that they're like would pose as like, oh, this will just be a fun little haha game, um are typically questions that you would find in your security answers, for logging into your bank accounts, into any of your secure financial accounts, essentially, and you could have your information stolen that way. So I would just be very cautious of seeing and responding to those types of posts as well.
Yeah, that's a very valid point. There are a lot of different things out there like that where it seems innocuous at first, but if you think about it, you just gave away your first name, your middle name, your last name, and your date of birth because you wanted to have fun with a picture on Facebook. People can use that against you, especially if they tie that to any of the information that a data broker may have, any breaches that may be out there. So that's something to definitely keep in mind. Another thing to be cautious of are public Wi-Fi connections. So if you go to McDonald's, they generally have free Wi-Fi or Starbucks or what have you. Those Wi-Fi connections allow anybody on them. They are not very secure, meaning people can read your traffic, like what you're doing on the internet, and possibly even gather what you're entering. So if you are doing, so say you're logging into your bank and you're on McDonald's Wi-Fi, they can capture that information. So be cautious of any public Wi-Fi connections, whether it's at a McDonald's, at a hotel, anything like that. You want to be cautious of them. Generally speaking, if it's something, you know, private, I would recommend using mobile data before a public Wi-Fi connection. Um, if it sounds too good to be true, it is. So you get a text message saying, "Hey, you won $1 million." It's not real. Um, you'll answer back to them. They'll start asking you personal information. You give it to them, and then they disappear. And you wonder what happens now. Well, they use that data to sell to other bad actors who then can use other data breaches, which is our next one, to kind of put it all together, and now they can steal your identity. Um, Data breaches are a big one. Obviously, if they have your name and it's tied to an email address, it's pretty easy to say, hey, this is your bank account. Um, One way to check to see if you've been a part of a data breach is haveibeenpwned.com. You would just put in your email address and it will tell you which data breaches that it knows of that you've been a part of. So if there are any accounts that you need to change your password on, anything like that, it's definitely something that I recommend everybody look at. Um, that website's been around for quite a while now, and I consistently check it for many different reasons. But data breaches are big, and that's a big place where people can get a lot of your information.
And
Um,
the resources that we have here listed, have I been pwned, and the manual data broker search and delete links that we have below. These are all free. We want to make sure that we can provide resources that people would be able to use without having to pay money for it. So just want to make everyone aware of that. There are options that you don't need to pay for it in order to clean up your digital footprint.
Yeah, yeah. So there's you can do it yourself. So if you go to a data broker's site, um, like Fast People Search or Truth Finder or anything like that, and if you find your information on there, you can put in a request for them to remove it. Now, whether they're going to remove it in a timely manner or not is a different question. That varies from site to site, but you can request that they remove it. Now, this isn't going to prevent them from re-adding it later if more stuff pops up. So this is something that you want to check regularly. There are applications out there like Delete Me, which will remove you from those data broker sites. Pretty much just does all the manual work for you and just cuts out the middleman. Um, and then this is actually the resource I was talking about earlier with CISA.gov, limiting your digital footprint. So that does have a lot of good information on there on what you can do to kind of privatize your online presence. So, what do you do if you've fallen victim to a cybercrime or you're a cyberstalking victim? I get a lot of people that ask me these questions. The very first thing that you're going to want to do is contact the authorities and trusted officials. So, oftentimes, when it comes to, you know, uh, internet crime, there's an internet crime unit with the state police. There are options with contacting the FBI. You can also go to the Internet Crime Complaint Center, which is ic3.gov, and submit a complaint there. But I recommend reporting it in multiple different places. That way, you're kind of covering your bases, and if anything were to happen, they have something to back up your claim. The other thing is you're going to want to report it on the platform that it took place. So say you're being harassed on Facebook, and they keep on, making new accounts, pretending that they're other people, all that fun stuff. Report it to Facebook. A lot of the times what they'll do is they will block that user and do other things on the back end to try to prevent them from recreating these accounts. And then the final thing that you could do is set your social networks to private. Um, Even LinkedIn, I know that LinkedIn's used for business and stuff like that, but setting LinkedIn to private will definitely prevent a lot of harassment, because there's a lot of data in LinkedIn that you don't get from other social media websites. So I highly, highly recommend setting your social networks to private, um, and making sure that you report it as soon as possible. Even if you're not sure, who to report it to, um, calling the authorities and having them kind of guide you is an option as well. Uh, that's what I've got. Heather, is there anything else you wanted to touch on?
I think that about covers that from just a very high level. If we can open it up to questions. I know I just saw one actually just come through to the chat about posting the links, so I'm just kind of putting the links in chat.
And like I just double checked my chat. I haven't received any additional questions. So please now, everyone, we have arrived at the Q&A portion. So please feel free to put your questions in chat. Please feel free to unmute, whatever you prefer.
I have a question. I'm Alona.
Hi, Alona.
Hi. I'm a digital immigrant for sure. I'll show you my picture. You can tell from my age. Okay, gray hair. So this is all very, very new and also very scary to me. But for example, every year I have to search car insurance or health insurance policies. And you know how that is. You can only do that online and you have to put in all this information, your age and your zip code and everything else. Should I not be doing that? And where's that going? Should I be doing something to protect myself on those websites?
Yeah, so when it comes to those websites, it really depends on the site that you're going to. So say you're on like State Farm's website, that's going to be secured. Everything that you give to them is going to be confidential, and it's also going to be encrypted. So if you're going to the actual like main site of like State Farm or Travelers or USAA or something like that, you should generally be okay. Now, if you're putting your information into just a website that kind of gives you quotes from a bunch of different um, providers for insurance, that's where things get a little bit scarier, because you don't know where that data is going. Oftentimes, they will tell you in the terms and conditions, which can be found on their website. Normally, if you scroll all the way to the bottom, they'll have that, or a privacy policy. Um, but that's not to say that they actually follow it. So these companies could be based outside of the US and they don't follow US law. So if you're doing it on the legitimate websites like State Farm's website or something like that, you should be okay. If you're putting it into those aggregates where it gives you kind of a list of here's a bunch of quotes from 10 different providers, that's where I'd probably say don't do that.
Okay, thank you for that.
No problem.
I did see there was an additional question in the chat. is there any concern using something like delete me could be a way for data brokers to get personal information?
I suppose that is possible. It's unlikely because their whole thing is to delete it from the data broker site. So generally speaking, what they'll do is they'll take your information, which is already on the data broker's website, and put in the request for you. And that information, again, it's already there, is used to close out uh, your account with the data broker. And I do air quotes around the account because it's not your account, it's just your profile. Thanks, Jim. That's what I had a feeling that was the case too. I just couldn't confirm that. Just in case anybody didn't see in chat, from the Delete Me site, they have do not sell my information. We take your privacy seriously. We do not sell our members' information. We are not a data broker.
And again, I will be sure to include these links into the website with the recording and slides, so you will have access to this information as well, everyone. I see another question is delete me services free of charge?
I can't recall on that one. Heather, do you remember?
I believe it is. I'm just going to double check here, but I believe that one was free. I think we listed all of them as free, but let me check.
Yeah, I knew they had some sort of plans. I wasn't sure about the free portion of it.
They do have a free scan. They do have most open source, or not open source, but most like systems that provide a free service will have the pricing also for, you know, more in-depth, more integrated searches, but they do offer a free scan for your information. My recommendation would be, if you're going to be using Delete Me to do that scan to see like if your information is out there, you can then take that information that you know is there and go to another source to manually delete that then.
I'm going to see if I can pull up an example of data broker site. Give me a second here. I got myself completely removed. Just trying to see if I can show you guys an example, but I followed my recommendations here and did get myself removed from a lot of those sites. I can't get a hit on my name or my wife's name. Sorry, guys.
There was another comment on put in the chat that delete me has a free do-it-yourself opt-out guide, and the link was provided. So thank you for that.
Yep, and that's going to be kind of what I talked about earlier. You do have the option to go on each of these sites and request that they remove your data. So I highly recommend checking out that guide. we have any other questions from anybody? Anything that anybody want to know more about?
I have a question about how do you get something removed from the internet that you don't want there? Is there a way to do that?
Yeah, so when it comes to like your personal information, so say your name pops up on fastpeoplesearch.com. You would go to fastpeoplesearch.com and they actually should have a web page dedicated to removing your information off of their website. Now you're gonna have to do that for each individual site that has your information. That delete me guide that was posted in chat should be able to help you out with that. But you would have to do that for each individual site unless you get a tool like Delete Me where you can pay them to remove it for you.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Any other questions?
All right, I'm not seeing any yet. We still have a few minutes, so we'll definitely hang on. I just want to thank everyone for attending, and I want to give a big thank you to Andrew and Heather for such an informative presentation. As I mentioned in the beginning, today's program is part of our month-long Cybersecurity Awareness Month series, and the series is actually going to conclude next week with a fun virtual escape room game designed to put your new knowledge to the test in a fun challenge. This interactive competition will have teams racing to solve puzzles and break out using cybersecurity skills that they gained throughout today's session. Along with the excitement of friendly rivalry, there will also be surprise prizes await the winners. So we hope that you can enjoy us. We hope that you can join us next Wednesday. And then in general, I'm dropping our upcoming events link and our newsletter link. So Lehigh has a lot of great other programs coming up. Like we have our first ever virtual Lehigh graduate fair. So this is when participating schools. So far we have Cedar Crest, DeSales, and Muhlenberg, who's going to be providing information about their graduate programs that are open, that are eligible for a Lehigh community discount. So that means if you're an employee of a Lehigh institution, if you have a spouse, some programs discounts are open to children as well as the community colleges. So I encourage you to look at these links and keep informed about what we have going. So again, thank you for this presentation. We'll have the recording, slides, and other links posted to the Lehigh website soon. I hope you all have a great rest of your day.